Hey guys, so today's video is going to be very different, and some of you guys are probably like, what the hell is this doing on a makeup channel? But told you guys I wanted to incorporate a few different videos here and there. I mentioned I wanted to do a Harry Potter baking video on Twitter, and you guys said you wanted to see it, so here we go. I love Harry Potter and baking as much as I love makeup, actually, so this one is for all my fellow Harry Potter lovers out there. I wanted to make some simple festive holiday treats from the series, so I'm making cauldron cakes, chocolate frogs, and pumpkin pasties. These are also, by the way, all vegan friendly as well, if you're like me and can't handle dairy or animal products. So I really hope you guys like this video. It was so fun to make. Let me know if you want to see more of these in the future. First up, we're going to be making the pumpkin pasties, which are essentially just some sweet pumpkin filling wrapped in dough, kind of like a mini pumpkin pie. Anyways, to make the pie crust first, you're going to mix 2 1/4 cup of flour, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 cup of non-hydrogenated shortening, which I'm only adding a couple teaspoons at first, as you can see here, just adding a little bit and then mixing that before I add the rest. I'm using a KitchenAid, but you can use a hand mixer if you want to. And then I'm just adding in the rest of that shortening and mixing that even more. Now I'm adding 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar to a 1/2 cup of water, and then I'm pouring that in very, very slowly while the mixer is on a low setting. Mix it all up for a few more minutes until everything is nice and smooth and it kind of forms like a uniform ball of dough. And then you're going to take that out and start forming the dough into a disc shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of spread it out a little bit with your hands, wrap it in some saran wrap, and place it in your fridge for about an hour to chill. Now we're moving on to the filling, which is super easy. You'll just need 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, not the pumpkin pie filling, that's different. You're gonna add 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, or if you're like me, even more because I love cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, which sounds gross to me because I hate ginger, but it actually tastes really good. I'm using a hand mixer to mix this for about a minute or so. It does not take long to mix together, and then I'm just setting that aside. And when the hour is up and the dough is done chilling in the fridge, you're just going to go ahead and grab it and place it down on a clean, lightly floured countertop. And I did not have a rolling pin, as you can see, so I just used this weird pitcher jar type thing, but basically you're just going to want to roll this out to about 1/4 of an inch thickness. Now you're just going to want to take something circular. I chose the top of my jar and just use this to cut out the crust for the pumpkin pasties. My circles were about 3 to 4 inches in diameter, but you can make them whatever size you want. With this size, I was able to make about 10. Before you transfer them to the baking sheet, you're going to want to spread them a bit thinner with your fingertips just so the pie crust isn't like super thick compared to the filling, and then just place them on a sheet with parchment paper and drop about 1 or 2 spoonfuls of the filling onto one side of each circle of dough. Spread that out a bit and then fold the other side over and press the edges together with your fingers to seal it shut. You might overfill them at first like I did, like I applied way too much in there, but that's okay, just wipe away the excess filling that spilled out. To seal them a bit tighter, and honestly just to make them look cuter, take a fork and make some little marks around the edges, and then also take a knife and make a few small slits in the top of each crust. And then I just popped these guys in the oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes or until they started to brown up a bit. You can just keep checking back on them, and when they look like they're browning, it's probably time to take them out. And this is what they should look like when they're done. They're so good. Not too sweet, but sweet enough, and the crust actually turned out pretty perfect, which is weird because I've never made crust from scratch before, and these guys were actually my favorite of the bunch. Next up are chocolate frogs, which are by far the easiest to make out of this video. I set up a double boiler, which is basically just boiling water in the bottom pot that melts whatever you put in the top pot. You can choose whatever chocolate you want, but these are my favorite dairy-free chocolate chips. They're by a brand called Enjoy Life, and they're semi-sweet. Just pour all the chocolate into the pot and stir it around frequently. They should all melt down in just a few minutes. You can find chocolate frog molds like these online. I got some from Amazon, but these are my mom's. I'm not sure where she got hers, but I will link some down below. Anyway, once your chocolate has melted, just pour it right into the molds and that's it. I ended up only making about 4 because I used the majority of this melted chocolate for the handles of the cauldron cakes, which we'll get to later. You're going to want to smooth out the chocolate so they won't be all bumpy, and then give it a few smacks on the counter to get rid of any air bubbles that might have gotten in there. And then just pop those in the freezer for about an hour and they should be good to go. When they come out, they might have some excess chocolate around the edges like this, which you can just cut off with a knife. Last but not least, we're going to be working on the cauldron cakes. I tried to make these look really similar to the ones they have at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Anyways, we're going to be starting with the handles, so I took that excess chocolate sauce we just melted down, which should be about half of that bag, and I transferred it to a tiny squeezy bottle. I'm just doing this on parchment paper and making U shapes for the handles and building them up a bit to make them thick enough to stand up in the cakes on their own. This much chocolate should get you about 5 handles, so if you want to make more, you should get 2 bags of chocolate chips just in case. And then once you're done making the handles, pop those in the freezer while you make the rest of the cauldron cakes, and they should harden in about an hour. For the frosting that goes around the edges of the cakes, mix 1 cup powdered sugar, 1/8 cup of vegan butter. I used the Earth Balance, which I had at room temperature so it wasn't super hard. 1/2 teaspoon vanilla, and then just start mixing that. This is going to be a small batch of frosting that will only cover about 5 cupcakes since I only made 5 handles, but if you want frosting for the entire batch of 9 cupcakes we're going to be making, just double the recipe. As it's mixing, you may need to add a splash of almond or soy milk to make it a bit more liquidy, and then last but not least, I'm just adding 1/8 cup of cocoa powder and mixing it until it's all blended, and then transfer that to a small container and set it in the fridge to thicken up a bit while you prepare and bake the cupcakes. So for the actual cake, mix 1 cup of almond milk and 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar and whisk those together for about a minute or so. When you're done whisking, add 1 cup sugar, 1/3 cup vegetable oil, and 1 teaspoon vanilla. Mix those together for a few minutes and it should start to look just a little bit frothy. So in a separate bowl, mix the dry ingredients, which is 1 cup flour, 1/3 cup cocoa powder, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon sea salt. You can sift this mixture together into the wet ingredients if you fancy, but I'm lazy, so I just mixed it with a spoon and poured it into the wet ingredients in 2 parts, mixing it in between. Spray some cooking oil in your cupcake pan to prevent sticking and fill each cupcake about 3/4 full, which is a little more full than I would regularly fill a cupcake, but I want the top to be extra rounded to act as the rounded base of the cauldron. This makes 9 cupcakes and you're going to want to bake them at 350 for anywhere from about 12 to 18 minutes. I think mine were done at about 17. When they're done, let them cool and then turn them upside down. Take a knife and carefully cut out a small hole in the top of each cake. We're going to be putting some filling in here in just a second. For the filling, it's literally the same exact recipe as the chocolate frosting we just made, but I substituted the cocoa powder for a dash of cinnamon, so it's not chocolatey. It's super easy, but I'll write the ingredients down below. I scooped it into a sandwich bag, cut off the corner, and used it as a kind of pastry bag to just pipe the filling right into the holes. I wanted this filling to be a bit runny, so I didn't refrigerate it like the other frosting. Now it's time to take the chocolate frosting out of the fridge and transfer it to another little pastry bag. Just pipe this around the edges of the top of the cake so it looks like the rim of the cauldron. Refrigerating this frosting is a must because it'll stay hardened like this, so it won't run down the sides of the cake later. For a little festive touch, I crushed a candy cane into small pieces and just sprinkled it right on top of the filling. Once your handles have hardened, just push them right down onto the cake. It's super easy. Make sure they actually go slightly into the actual cupcake and not just the frosting, otherwise they might fall over after just a few minutes. And that's it for the cauldron cakes. They're super cute and probably the most fun to make here, and they are super rich and sweet, so if you have a super sweet tooth, you'll like these ones. Alright guys, that is it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and getting to see a little different side of me and my interests. If you recreate any of these recipes, please show me either on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever you can find me on social media, because I'd love to see and hear what you guys think of them. So anyways, hope you guys are having a magical holiday season, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!